is the Sportsline Podcast on CHCH and Parrot TV. I'm your host, Bubba O'Neil. Thank you so much for joining us. Folks, what a spring and summer it has been in the Golden Horseshoe, Southern Ontario. In fact, even the nation as well, too. You got to look at what the Jays are doing. Maybe they're going to be in for a good second half run. Of course, the Maple Leafs have been making moves. The Ticats look really hot. Wimbledon's underway. There is so much going on. The Bulldogs with massive announcements today. But over it all is something called the World Cup, and it has been special. Folks, if there's been anything hotter than the weather in this country, it has to be the World Cup and its fever of excitement. The men's national soccer team have created a frenzy with their run to the round of 16 and Saturday's knockout match versus Morocco. It's highly anticipated. To tee up Canada's first ever opportunity at reaching the quarterfinal is Montreal sports management analyst Hugh GS. Hugh, welcome to the Sportsline Podcast.
Thank you very much for having me, Bubba. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thanks for joining us. And I'm telling you, like I kind of teed up there, what a time to be alive for any kind of football or soccer fan, whatever it is you prefer to call the sport. In this country, North America, obviously, the World Cup is delivered, and it's only been punctuated. I just need to go back to that recent matchup between Portugal and Croatia. Special time.
Honestly, what a finale there. I had a feeling it might have been going extra time after that last-minute disallowed goal, back and forth the whole time. And two communities which have quite a lot of supporters here in Canada, obviously, Portugal and Croatia. And just the latest of a fantastic series of games that we've had the pleasure of witnessing at the World Cup this time around.
Someone that has followed the sport as deeply as you have, are you surprised at what we've seen in terms of Canadian attendance and, of course, the attention that it has received in this country from all the different communities that we do in our melting pot?
I wouldn't say I'm surprised in a sort of optimistic way. I expected it to have this sort of support. It's always great to see it come to fruition this way. But I've always felt that soccer is supported in a way that people maybe who don't support the sport don't really appreciate, especially from people who are of different ethnic backgrounds, since it is the world game after all, and it's the sport that people at least support, maybe not just for the Canadian national team, but for the Canadian national team and a second national team that they might feel affiliated to. But as you said, it has been great to see the turnout to the games. It was maybe going to be a problem or a sort of contentious point before the tournament began with the price of the tickets. People were worried, or they were claiming that, well, this is going to mean that there'll be empty seats. And at least that hasn't happened, even if the price of the tickets hasn't gone down or anything like that. They stayed just as high as they were initially. All the stadiums have been full for all the games. So that's a good sign.
Yeah, it's a major plus because, there were certain concerns, will people show up for Haiti and Panama? And then, sorry, in Canada, I haven't seen an empty seat anywhere. It's been great. Obviously, this country have jumped on the bandwagon when it comes to our national men's team. Let's just before we get a little deeper into what we've seen in this, this tournament, what we could expect for our upcoming game against Morocco on Saturday, just your thoughts on the performance of this club.
I think it's been great. Honestly, we had a pretty good qualifying campaign, so I don't think we've necessarily totally broken expectations. We did have that final group stage loss to Switzerland. It would have been great if we would have managed to draw or beat them. It would have meant we were playing in Vancouver, our last game. I think Jesse Marsch has done a fantastic job. He's really instilled the kind of confidence and even compassion in the team. That 6-0 drubbing of Qatar was an extremely emotional game. Obviously, we had Ismail Kone fracture his leg, and then we had the young Nathan Saliba come on to replace him and score that beautiful free kick. So there's been a number of different stories. I think the outpouring of emotion after Eustáquio's game-winning goal in our last game was fantastic to see, especially, like we mentioned, from people who maybe don't follow the sport super closely, but got to participate in that sporting event as Canadians, first and foremost. So Yeah, in terms of the strict on-field performance, I think it's been very good, not super exceptional. If we manage to beat Morocco, then we'll have completely surpassed all expectations. But because of the situation where, 8 of the best third place teams from the group stages were going to go through, we were always expected to go through the group stages. And then to play South Africa in our round of 32 was a pretty generous draw, to be honest. And we were the favorites. But we still beat them. So,
I think go back to the previous 2022 event, and I remember John Herdman, who was a manager at the time, he always said the target wasn't this World Cup. It was 2026. And he's no longer there. Jesse Marsch is a man. Jesse's been kind of a polarizing figure. Maybe he likes to take the attention. I'm not sure. What do you think about him? And not so much with his strategy, but just him, the man. He's a very interesting character.
He is a very interesting character. He's maybe more stereotypically American than Canadian in how passionate and you would almost say aggressive, not in the negative sense, but just to the point he is. Very different personality than John Herdman. Obviously, him as a character, in terms of the backstory, he felt snubbed by not being hired as the coach for the United States, and then maybe feels like he has that extra point to prove. But even as we've seen in his coaching career with clubs in Europe, he's always had that sort of fiery personality, and I think it's great for our team. I think he's a great leader, to be honest. His tactics are also fantastic. Maybe that's for another question, but in terms of his personality, I think he's a great fit for the Canadian men's national team, and as I mentioned, a really strong, charismatic leader.
What about his? You said the word tactics, and I'm not talking about technical tactics. His tactics with the media, it's like a game to him. I mean, your thoughts on how he handled the Alphonso Davies situation and how that all worked out. Were you a fan?
I think he was somewhat teetering on the edge of it being a little bit gimmicky, to be honest. You could kind of tell that he was almost bragging about the fact that, we managed to trick them by not telling them that he might not have played. That can feel a little bit strange. You'd almost wish he just didn't mention it at all. Maybe he was kind of taking a little bit too much credit. And maybe that's the flip side of the coin when you have somebody who's so intense and charismatic and boisterous, let's say, that then it can somewhat spill over. Especially in the more kind of calm setting of a press conference when he's not there on the sideline, being able to jump around. So I don't know. I don't think it was anything drastic or anything. No major flaws or mistakes were committed or made. But like I said, he's kind of teetering on the edge, as he always had, of it being a bit of a gimmick or him being maybe laughed at a little bit by other fan bases.
In Canada's game against South Africa, I mean, it may have been only 15 minutes, but I thought the pace of the game, the ability to push the ball up the field, the mentality maybe, from the time Alphonso Davies came on the pitch, it seemed to change for Canada. Do you think he's going to play against Morocco? Do you think he'll even start maybe?
My bet is that he won't start. Even though, as you said, he was electric when he came on, and he definitely made a difference, and just from his technical ability, you could tell that he immediately was the best player on the field. My feeling is that because he only got 15 minutes, as you say, a very limited time, he's probably not at full fitness and will again be used as an impact sub at left wing and not at left back if needed. If we somehow manage to go 3-0 up in the first half, then I doubt he'll make any sort of appearance. But I think tactically, like we mentioned for Jesse Marsch, not in terms of on-field tactics, but in terms of game psychology and game state tactics, it's better to use him as an impact sub than to have him start from the beginning, especially since he can come on against tired defenders and really use his lightning quick pace to his advantage.
What about Kyle Larin? I'm a little confused about him as well, too. And there might have been Matthew Shinetti of TSN might have hinted that there was a little conflict. And maybe that's a little harsh about, him not seeing any minutes in last game, and that, him and the manager might be in disagreement. He scored a couple of goals and he looks strong as well too. We kind of, I don't know if this is a Canadian thing. We seem to lack finishing. We generate lots of opportunities, and yes, we scored 6 against Qatar, but I mean, they ended up down with 9 men. But in the heat of the moment, I'm not sure if we have enough up front, but Kyle would be a help, would he not?
I think he definitely would be. He has a very similar profile to Promise David, even though Promise David is much younger. They're both tall target men whose strongest ability is their finishing. He did score that goal, and as you mentioned, he probably feels slighted for having not been started in the last game after doing the celebration of the fingers in the ears. I don't hear all the criticism. I did it again. And he had a very strong end to the season with Southampton in the championship last year. The only issue with him, or it's a major issue, and I can understand why Jesse Marsch doesn't want to start him, is that he lacks pace and he doesn't have the ability to play on the transition in the way that Oluwaseyi or obviously Jonathan David does. And since Promise David came on and did score against Switzerland with basically his first touch of the game, he's probably ahead of Kyle Larin now in the pecking order. Most fans were calling for Kyle Larin to never start again or maybe not never start again, but to not be the first choice striker after our qualifying campaign, because of the way that he just didn't really seem to fit the system. And even though he is a strong finisher, he wasn't managing to put the goals away. I don't know if Oluwaseyi is going to start the next game. It'll definitely be Jonathan David alongside someone else. Oluwaseyi has not been fantastic either, so it would be between Larin and Promise David, and maybe he will start Larin, but I kind of doubt it.
I used the word melting pot earlier in the fact that, I'll use the Croatia and Portugal game as we always kind of get into these arguments on these world events, especially the World Cup. Or, are you cheering for Canada? Where were you born? What's your blood? What's your heritage? And, and I'm glad to see that we're allowed to celebrate both, because I know many Croatians. In fact, the area that I grew up was basically a Croatian area. And lots of Portuguese that grew up in Oakville, where I grew up as well too, and they're cheering for both nations. And we saw that all wrapped up into 43,000 people at Toronto Stadium a couple of nights ago. But I'll ask you this though. Morocco is kind of in the same. I figured, I'm like, how many Moroccans can there be in Canada? But especially where you are in Montreal, there's a very, very big population, is there not?
Absolutely there is. And like you mentioned, I would bet that for a lot of them, Canada is their second team. And historically, Canada has not been as strong of a footballing nation as Morocco, whether it be on the field, except for our women's team, of course. Don't get me wrong. In terms of the men's team. And Morocco have been extremely strong recently. And like I mentioned earlier, for a lot of people of Moroccan heritage, soccer is extremely important to them in a way that maybe hockey is to a lot of Canadians. But as you mentioned, in Montreal, we have a massive Moroccan community. They're going to feel extremely strong, or have extremely strong feelings about their team. I was even speaking to some Moroccan fans last night who feel very confident they're going to beat Canada. And if they do, then they'll be going ahead to face most likely France, which again is a massive game for ethnocultural reasons, as there are a lot of French Moroccans as well in France. So we have that similar situation for both of those games. But I think if Morocco does lose to Canada, then all of these Moroccan fans will be cheering for Canada to beat France. So I think it's sort of a boon to be able to support multiple national teams. I have English and Italian heritage. Obviously, Italy isn't there this time.
Those Bosnians.
Honestly, I say we for England. I say we for Canada. I say we for Italy. So Italy didn't deserve to be there, and that's our own fault. But I think it's a beautiful thing to have multiple national teams you can cheer for. I don't see it being a problem. And people say, well, what if they were playing each other in the final? Well, then you can't lose.
Let me throw this to you. Morocco, Afghan champs, People forget that they went real far in the last tournament. They've been kind of written off a little bit. Your thoughts on their tournament and how they've progressed to this point?
Well, it's important to say that the idea of them being AFCON champions is still somewhat contentious since they were behind the trophy.
Fair.
I don't know, you know what I mean? I don't want to say... So yeah, AFCON champs, let's say, with a huge asterisk in the corner. I think they've had a very different play style than they have had previously under their new manager. And in that first game against Brazil, it was extremely impressive to see the way they played. They have the super young 18-year-old center defensive midfielder Ayoub Bouadzi, who is playing immensely well and in an extremely difficult position that you usually see veterans play in. So he's basically keeping the ball ticking over. And as we can see on the screen there, yes, they tied against Brazil and they beat Scotland. So they're definitely if they beat Canada, like we said, which they're the favorites to do, I hope they don't, but let's say they do, then they'll have to face the favorites in France, which I would have to say they probably will not be able to beat, but it'll still be a really strong tournament from them. And they have a super exciting team, really enjoyable to watch, to be honest.
All right, I got to put you on the spot, Huey. Like, what's going to happen? I'll ask you two questions and put you on the spot. What's going to happen Saturday at 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, Canada versus Morocco in California?
Well, there's what I want to happen, and then there's what I think is going to happen. I want Canada to go up four goals up in the first half and cruise to victory. What I think is going to happen is that we're going to have to see whether Jesse Marsh sticks to his guns tactically and still tries to play that sort of intense counter-pressing style where the players really make a lot of vertical runs up and down the field, both on offense and on defense. If he does do that, we have a much lower chance of beating Morocco, to be completely honest. And if Hakimi has a strong game on that right flank, I could see them scoring a couple in the first few minutes. If he doesn't stick to his tactical plan and goes for a more defensive approach, which we've seen work extremely well so far in the tournament, with a lot of minnows managing to get results against huge teams, the best example was Cape Verde against Spain, where they held them to a 0-0 draw. If we can play that kind of tournament football game state, we're playing for a result, not to employ the tactical system we've developed, then I can see Canada maybe bringing it to extra time. And, as we mentioned earlier, if we bring Kyle Larin on and he manages to score a header or something like that in the last few minutes, then maybe we'll be able to hold on. But maybe that's a bit of wishful thinking. To be completely honest, the betting man's money would be on Morocco. Not necessarily winning comfortably, but I'll go with 2-0.
Do we have it in our DNA as a nation? We're a hockey nation. You talked about that earlier. We love offense. And I look at the way this side has been built by Jesse Marsh. Can that team park the bus? Can they try to just take it to extra time?
I'm sure they can. The players themselves, I'm sure, know how to do it. But again, I guess it's about whether the trade-off for Jesse Marsh and whether he thinks that imposing this new sort of system on them would work or not. I mean, he must have had in the back of his mind that if we do progress along into the later stages of the tournament, each round should be more and more difficult. So I don't know what his game plan would have been if he projected into the semifinals and we were playing against England, Argentina, or France, or a team like that. I honestly would think it would be pretty naive for him to believe that he could just stick to that offensive counter-pressing style. The good sign is that we already play in a 4-4-2, which is maybe the best way to defend with the low block, maybe with Jonathan David dropping in to make it a 4-5-1 out of possession. And a lot of our players do, as I mentioned, they know how to play that system. And even though, like you said, we enjoy watching offense, there's what is enjoyable and then there's what is efficient, Fair
enough. Who wins it all? Got to put you on the right there. Who wins it all?
France.
Really? I mean, that was fast.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. Again, I don't know if I want them to. I'd like to see a new winner. It was Argentina and then France before. The final's going to be France and Argentina again, in my opinion. Brazil aren't looking that great. England struggled to get past the DRC. So on one side of the bracket, it's going to be Argentina, and the other, it's going to be France. And France just look amazing. It's Didier Deschamps' last hurrah as the French manager. He won the World Cup as a coach and as a player. And the main issue people were going into feeling like about around France was that, hey, the only way France can lose is if they implode, as we've seen happen at previous World Cups. They're their own worst enemy, and mainly with Kylian Mbappe up top being a sort of, his ego was maybe the issue. But that seems to not be a problem. They seem to be playing for each other. He's making more defensive actions than he did with Real Madrid last year for his club team. Olise is
he's amazing.
He's just a beautiful player to watch. And then there's Dembele, Barcola or Doué on the left side. Cherki, who played for Man City fantastically in the Premier League, can't even seem to get a game. People were worried about their defenders, and they're doing fine. They got experience in the midfield. There's nothing else to say. I think they're strong favorites.
They are. They're very, very loaded. You don't see Spain maybe making some noise?
Possibly. Mm-hmm. I don't think France would have tied 0-0 with Cabo Verde in the first game, as we mentioned. And maybe you could say that, hey, Spain are building their way into the tournament like they actually have done previously. That would be a fantastic semifinal, France against Spain. But I think France have a lot more offensive ability. And Lamine Yamal for Spain is still clearly playing with a bit of an injury. Played well last game, or yesterday. But I still think France are favorites. If Spain manages to somehow beat France, then that would be probably a closer final between Spain and Argentina. But I can see France beating them for sure.
They really are. France are special. They're loaded. They do seem extremely motivated as well, too. And you're right. Goal scoring coming from everywhere. Of course, Mbappe is the sort of centerpiece, but goals are coming from Barcola, all kinds of people. It's unbelievable the way that team is stepping up and getting better as it seems. We're going to end up on this question here, and yes. I think we mentioned earlier, and this is no doubt, we're a hockey nation, but there are some changes that we're kind of seeing. Basketball is making an inroad. Football's always been around, sort of, kind of as, a sport that came to our country. Our men's team is improved. Our women's team have long improved over the years as well, mm-hmm. too, even hosting a World Cup. Where is this sport in our nation, and do you see some improvements? And are you happy with the depth and the improvements?
I'm very happy with the depth and the improvements, honestly. When you look at how many of our men's team are playing in top European leagues for top clubs, Jonathan David plays for Juventus, for example, and we mentioned Kyle Larin is playing in England before, but most of them play in Europe. That's something that I don't know if I would have predicted 10 or 15 years ago. So in terms of the strict technical ability of our top players, we're better than we've ever been by far. We're, I would say, on par with the US and Mexico, roughly in terms of our players' capabilities. That can only mean that for the casual supporters, or the supporters who basically will just watch soccer or football when Canada's in the World Cup and don't necessarily follow a club team, that means they have something to cheer for. That means we beat South Africa in the round of 32 and progressed to the round of 16. In the early 2000s or in the 90s, Canada wasn't even at the World Cup. So it was just not even a thing people could watch, even almost by accident, if that makes sense. I can see the sport growing a lot, just overall. It obviously is the world's game, as we mentioned before. And it makes me very happy to see how well the men's national team is doing and to see how many people want to support the team and just get involved in the sport.
I'm with you too, and I think even with things like the CPL, I think that has opened the eyes of many. Of course, here in Hamilton, Forge FC have been a powerhouse as well too, and the teams that they've been able to put together and compete year in, year out. Hugh Smith, thank you so much for joining us. Your insight has been outstanding. For people that want to follow you or get more of your information, where can they get in touch with you?
You can find me on YouTube at Hugh GS, so just the initials, Hugh GS. Otherwise, I'm on TikTok as well, and that's what I got for my socials.
Yeah, TikTok. Even I had to get a TikTok account as well, too. I tried to avoid it, though. Enjoy the match on Saturday, my friend. Thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Bubba. I really appreciate it as well. Go Canada.
All right. Go Canada. Hey, that's your Sportsline podcast for the day. And if you've just seen and heard, we love talking sports. We love talking World Cup and cheering for our nation. If you do know of an athlete, team, or event to promote the Sportsline podcast, we want to hear from you. Please hit that thumbs up, like, and subscribe button. And if you have something to say, we all appreciate those fine comments for the wonderful people that make the Sportsline podcast possible. Thank you so very much. Enjoy the match. And we'll see you real soon.